The laughter started before she even touched the rifle. "Let me take one shot." 3 words. Calm. Almost too quiet for the wind-swept range carved into the Arizona desert. The Delta snipers didn't even look at her at first. They were still focused on the steel plate far downrange, a distant speck shimmering in the heat haze, the same target they had been trying, and failing, to beat for hours. When they finally turned, the laughter came fast and careless, bouncing off concrete barriers and pride alike. She stood there in borrowed boots and a plain range vest, no unit patch, no call sign stitched on her chest. Just a woman with dust on her sleeves and eyes that had already seen too much. "This isn't a charity range," one of them said, shaking his head. "That record took 6 years to set." Another smirked. "One shot, from that distance. Sure, why not let the cook try next?" She didn't flinch. She had learned long ago that the loudest doubts usually came from people who had never stood where she had stood. She simply nodded toward the rifle resting on the bench. A custom-built precision weapon, tuned within a hair of perfection, treated like a sacred object by the men around it. "Just one," she repeated. "If I miss, I'll walk away." The range officer hesitated. He had seen that look before, though he couldn't place where. Not arrogance, not desperation, something steadier, something earned. Against his better judgment, he sighed and stepped aside. "All right," he said. "One shot." The laughter faded into murmurs as she approached the bench. The rifle felt heavier than the ones she used to carry, but familiar enough. She adjusted the stock, settled behind the scope, and let the world narrow. The desert wind tugged at her hair, whispering variables into the moment. Distance, elevation, mirage, breath. As her cheek met the cold metal, memories came uninvited. A different range, different sand, a mission that wasn't supposed to go wrong. Her spotter's voice in her ear, steady until it wasn't. The sound of incoming fire. The order to exfil that came too late. She remembered the moment her shot saved the team, and the moment afterward when command decided she didn't belong anymore. Too many questions, too much liability. Officially, she, washed out. Unofficially, she was erased. No ceremony, no record, just silence. "Whenever you're ready," someone said behind her. She exhaled slowly, letting the past drift away with the breath. This shot wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving something to herself, that what they took from her hadn't been everything. She dialed the scope, making micro adjustments that made a few of the snipers exchange puzzled glances. Her fingers moved with muscle memory older than doubt. She waited, not for quiet, but for the wind to pause in just the right way. The desert held its breath. The shot cracked through the air, sharp and final. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. No clang, no movement. A few of the men chuckled again, already turning away. Then, far downrange, the steel plate jumped. Not a graze, not an edge hit, dead center. The sound reached them a moment later, a clean, ringing impact that echoed across the range and straight through every man standing there. Conversations died mid-sentence. One sniper slowly lowered his binoculars, his face pale. That's past the marker," he said quietly. The range officer grabbed the scope, hands suddenly unsteady. He stared, then stared again, adjusting focus as if the image might change. "That's beyond the record," he whispered. "By almost 9 meters. No one laughed now. She stood up slowly, stepping away from the bench as if the rifle no longer belonged to her. Her hands trembled, not from nerves, but from release. Years of being told she wasn't enough, that her best didn't count, that her shot didn't matter, released in a single echoing clang. One of the Delta snipers cleared his throat. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice stripped of humor. She considered the question. There were a dozen answers she could give and none that fit anymore. "Someone who used to do this for real," she said at last. The range officer approached her, respect in every careful step. "Ma'am," he said, "that shot, we'll need to log it. Verify conditions. If it stands." She shook her head gently. "I don't need my name on anything." That surprised them more than the shot itself. She picked up her vest, brushing the dust from it, and started toward the exit. Behind her, men who had spent their lives chasing perfection stood silent, humbled by a reminder they hadn't expected. Just before she reached the gate, one of them called out, "Why didn't you stay? With that skill, you could've." She paused, then looked back, her eyes calm and clear. "I stayed long enough," she said. "Today was just to remember." As she walked away, the sun dipped lower over the desert, casting long shadows across the range. The record would be talked about for years. The mystery shooter debated. The laughter remembered with embarrassment. But for her, the real victory wasn't breaking a record with one perfect shot. It was knowing that no matter how many doors had been closed, no matter how loudly people laughed, the truth of who she was had never left her hands. Sometimes, all it takes is one shot, not to prove them wrong, but to remind yourself who you've always been.